The starship Aurora Dawn floated quietly in the vast emptiness of space. Its smooth silver surface caught the faint light of a distant star, making it look almost like a ghostly figure against the endless blackness. Inside the ship, Captain Laura Myers stood on the observation deck staring down at the planet below. It was Zik-7, a world covered in strange glowing landscapes and towering crystal formations. The mission ahead weighed heavily on her mind. Humanity's leaders had chosen her crew to deliver a special cargo, a collection of gifts meant to show the native species of Zik-7 that humans wanted peace. Laura sighed and turned to her second-in-command, Daniel Carter. He was leaning against the wall with his arms crossed, his usual confident demeanor replaced by a look of doubt. "Do you think they'll even open it?" he asked, breaking the silence. "They'd better," Laura replied, her voice firm. She didn't, like showing weakness, especially not now. "This mission is supposed to prove we're not invaders anymore. We've got to show them we're serious about building trust." Daniel frowned. "Trust? After everything that's happened? Every time we send one of these so-called peace offerings, something goes wrong. Half the galaxy thinks we're hiding weapons or traps inside them. You really think they'll believe us this time?" Laura didn't answer right away. Instead, she walked over to the large viewport and gazed at the alien planet again. She knew Daniel was right. Humanity's attempts at diplomacy hadn't exactly gone smoothly. On countless occasions, their carefully prepared gifts, meant to symbolize friendship and goodwill, had been met with suspicion, fear, or outright violence. Some species refused to accept them altogether. Others opened the packages only to find themselves facing unexpected dangers. Whether it was malfunctioning technology, hidden explosives, or simply misunderstood intentions, humanity's reputation for peaceful gestures was in shambles. "Laura," Daniel said after a moment, stepping closer, "what if this turns into another disaster? What if the Zixians react the same way everyone else has? We can't afford to fail here." "We won't fail," Laura said, though her tone lacked conviction. She glanced over her shoulder at Maria Lopez, the ship's communications officer, who sat at her station nearby. "Maria, any response from the locals yet?" Maria shook her head without looking up. Her fingers moved quickly across the control panel as she tried to establish contact. "Nothing. They've ignored all our signals so far." "Great," Daniel muttered under his breath. "Another warm welcome. Maybe because every other species knows by now that opening a human gift is like playing Russian roulette." Laura shot him a sharp look. "That's enough, Daniel. I don't need negativity right now. We've got a job to do, and we're going to do it right." Before Daniel could respond, the ship's intercom crackled to life. A calm voice came through the speakers. "Captain Myers, we're approaching the designated landing zone. Preparations are complete." "Understood," Laura replied. She turned back to her team. "All right, everyone, let's move. We've got a planet to visit and a message to deliver." Minutes later, Laura, Daniel, Maria, and 2 engineers, Kyle Bennett and Rachel Kim, gathered in the airlock. Each of them wore standard-issue exosuits designed to protect against unknown environmental hazards. As the outer door slid open, revealing the alien world beyond, Laura felt a surge of excitement mixed with unease. This was it, the moment they'd been preparing for. Zik-7 was unlike anything Laura had ever seen. The ground beneath their feet shimmered with an eerie green glow, and the air carried a faint hum, as if the planet itself were alive. Towering crystalline structures surrounded them, pulsating softly with colors that seemed to shift and change depending on how you looked at them. It was beautiful, but also unsettling. As they approached the cargo container they'd brought, a massive metal box filled with Earth's most prized offerings, a group of Zixians emerged from behind one of the glowing formations. Their bodies were translucent, shimmering like liquid glass, and they moved with a fluid grace that made them seem almost unreal. One of them stepped forward, clearly the leader. Its form flickered slightly as it spoke, its voice coming through, Maria's translator device in broken melodic tones. "Why? Come here," the Zixian asked, its words hesitant but clear. Laura took a deep breath. "We bring gifts," she said, gesturing toward the container behind her team. "Symbols of peace from Earth. We wish to build trust with your people." The Zixians exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. Finally, the leader spoke again. "Why should we trust? Others say your kind hides danger in such things." Laura hesitated, unsure how to respond. Before she could say anything, Daniel stepped forward. "Look, we know there have been problems in the past, but those were mistakes. This time it's different. We're here to make things right." The Zixian tilted its head, studying Daniel for a long moment before turning back to Laura. "Prove it," it said simply. Laura nodded. "We will. Just give us a chance." But as the conversation continued, a low rumble began to echo across the landscape. At first it was barely noticeable, but it quickly grew louder, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Laura looked around, alarmed. "What's happening?" Without warning, the ground near the cargo container cracked open, sending chunks of glowing rock flying in all directions. Smoke billowed into the air and the container itself started to vibrate violently. The Zixians backed away, their forms flickering rapidly in distress. "Oh no," Kyle whispered, staring at the container. "Something's wrong." Rachel rushed forward, scanning the device with her handheld tool. Her eyes widened as she read the results. "It's unstable. There's some kind of energy spike inside." Daniel swore loudly. "I knew it. This whole thing was rigged." Laura's heart sank as realization dawned on her. Whatever was happening, it wasn't part of the plan. And if they didn't act fast, it could ruin everything they'd worked for. The ground beneath the cargo container cracked wider, sending shards of glowing rock skittering across the surface of Zix 7. The air grew thick with smoke, and the hum that had filled the atmosphere earlier turned into a high-pitched whine. Laura Myers clenched her fists, her mind racing as she tried to make sense of what was happening. This wasn't supposed to happen. The container was meant to be a symbol of peace, not a ticking time bomb. Rachel Kim knelt beside the vibrating box, her scanner emitting rapid beeps as she analyzed its condition. Her face was pale under the glow of her visor. "It's not sabotage. At least not external," she said, her voice trembling. "There's a failsafe inside. Something triggered it." "A failsafe?" Laura demanded, stepping closer. "What kind of failsafe would do this?" Kyle Bennett joined Rachel, his own scanner confirming her findings. "It looks like a self-destruct mechanism. If certain conditions aren't met during delivery, it activates automatically." Maria Lopez, who had been trying to communicate with the Zixians, turned to the group with wide eyes. "They're watching us. They think we set this up on purpose." Laura glanced at the Zixians. Their translucent forms shimmered with agitation, their colors shifting rapidly between shades of red and orange. The leader stepped forward again, its melodic voice sharp and accusatory. "You lie. Your gift was weapon. You cannot be trusted." "No," Laura shouted, raising her hands in a gesture of peace. "We didn't know about this. We swear." Someone back. "Home must have programmed it without telling us." The Zixian tilted its head, studying her for a moment. Its expression, or what passed for an expression, was unreadable. Finally, it spoke again. "Prove your words. Stop this thing." Daniel Carter swore under his breath. "Stop it? How are we supposed to stop something that's already exploding?" "We have to try," Laura said firmly. She turned to Kyle and Rachel. "Is there any way to disable it?" Kyle hesitated, his fingers flying over his scanner. "There might be, but it's risky. If we cut the wrong wire or disrupt the energy flow, it could blow up even faster." "Then we don't have much choice," Laura said. She looked at the Zixians again. "Give us a minute, please. Let us fix this." The Zixian leader exchanged glances with its companions before nodding slowly. "1 minute. Then we act." Laura swallowed hard and motioned for Kyle and Rachel to get to work. The two engineers moved quickly, their tools scraping against the metal surface of the container as they searched for access points. Smoke poured out in thick clouds, making it harder to see. Laura stayed close, keeping an eye on both the engineers and the increasingly restless Zixians. Daniel stood nearby, his hand resting on the hilt of his sidearm. "This is bad, Laura. Really bad." If they decide we're lying, we're done for. I know, Laura replied through gritted teeth. She didn't need Daniel pointing out the obvious. Every second felt like an eternity, and the tension in the air was almost suffocating. The Zixians watched silently, their glowing forms flickering with impatience. Finally, Kyle let out a triumphant shout. Got it. I found the control panel. If I can reroute the energy flow, I might be able to shut it down. Do it, Laura ordered. She turned to Maria. Keep talking to them. Tell them we're doing everything we can. Maria nodded and raised her translator device, speaking in soothing tones. The Zixians didn't respond, but they didn't attack either, which Laura took as a small victory. Kyle worked frantically, his gloved hands moving with precision despite the chaos around him. Rachel hovered nearby, ready to assist if needed. After what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, Kyle leaned back with a sigh of relief. It's done. The failsafe is disabled. The container stopped vibrating and the high-pitched whine faded into silence. Smoke still lingered in the air, but the immediate threat was gone. Laura exhaled deeply and turned to the Zixians. We stopped it. You can see that, right? We didn't want this to happen. The leader studied her for a long moment before speaking. Your actions prove nothing. Only that you can stop your own weapon. It does not mean you are trustworthy. Laura felt a pang of frustration, but she forced herself to remain calm. I understand why you'd feel that way. But we came here in good faith. Whoever programmed this failsafe betrayed us as much as they betrayed you. We need to find out who did this, and why. The Zixians' colors shifted again, this time to a softer blue. Perhaps, but trust is earned, not given. Prove yourselves worthy. Then we will speak again. With that, the Zixians turned and retreated into the glowing structures, disappearing from sight. Laura watched them go, her shoulders slumping, with exhaustion. She turned to her team. Well, that could have gone worse. Daniel snorted. Could have gone worse? Laura, we almost got blown up by our own gift, and now the Zixians think we're liars. How is that not worse? He's right, Maria added quietly. If word gets out about this, no one will ever take us seriously again. Laura ran a hand through her hair, her mind racing. She knew her team was right. This mission was supposed to be humanity's chance to rebuild its reputation, to show the galaxy that humans weren't just reckless invaders. Instead, it had become another disaster, one that threatened to undo all their efforts. Back to the ship, Laura said finally. We need to figure out who programmed that failsafe and why. Until we do, we're stuck cleaning up someone else's mess. The team trudged back to the Aurora Dawn in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Once aboard, Laura gathered everyone in the briefing room. The mood was grim as they sat around the table, staring at the holographic display showing the damaged container. So, Daniel began, breaking the silence. Whoever rigged this thing clearly wanted it to fail. The question is why? Was it an accident, or was it deliberate? It had to be deliberate, Kyle said. Fail-safes like that don't just appear by accident. Someone put it there on purpose. But who? Rachel asked. And how did they keep it hidden from us until now? Laura leaned forward, her elbows resting on the table. It doesn't matter who or how. What matters is fixing this. If we can't prove that we didn't know about the failsafe, we'll lose. Any chance of making peace with the Zixians or anyone else for that matter? Maria cleared her throat. There's something else. I've been going through old transmissions from previous missions. Turns out this isn't the first time something like this has happened. There's a pattern. Every single diplomatic effort involving physical gifts ends in disaster. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed her words. Laura felt a chill run down her spine. Are you saying someone's been sabotaging our missions? On purpose? Maria nodded. It looks that way. Someone, back on Earth, or maybe even within our own government, is deliberately undermining our attempts at diplomacy, Daniel frowned. Corporate interests? Rogue factions? Or just plain paranoia? Whatever it is, Laura said, standing up. We need to expose it. If we can show the Zixians and the rest of the galaxy that we're being sabotaged, maybe we can salvage this situation. And if we can't? Daniel asked. Laura met his gaze, her expression determined. Then we fight to clear our name, because if we don't, humanity will never be seen as anything more than a threat. The briefing room aboard the Aurora Dawn was tense, the air thick with frustration and uncertainty. Laura Myers stood at the head of the table, her hands resting on its smooth surface as she stared at the holographic display in front of her. The image showed fragments of data Maria Lopez had pulled from old transmissions, patterns that pointed to a disturbing truth. Someone had been sabotaging humanity's diplomatic missions for years, ensuring that every attempt at peace ended in failure. Laura turned to her team, her voice firm but tinged with urgency. We need to figure out who's behind this, and we need to do it fast. If word gets out about what happened here, no one will trust us again. Daniel Carter leaned back in his chair, his arms crossed. Easier said than done. Whoever's doing this is smart. They've covered their tracks well. We're talking about someone with access to classified systems, maybe even people in high places. Kyle Bennett nodded. And they've got resources. This isn't some lone hacker messing around, it's organized, systematic. Rachel Kim spoke up, her tone soft but steady. What if it's not just one person? What if it's a group? A faction? Within Earth's government or a corporation trying to maintain control? Maria tapped her tablet, bringing up another set of files. That makes sense. Think about it. Every time we try to establish peaceful relations with another species, trade routes open up, new technologies are shared, and alliances form. That threatens anyone who profits from conflict or isolation. Laura frowned. So you're saying this is about money, power? Exactly, Maria replied. If humanity becomes too friendly with other species, it disrupts the status quo. Some groups don't want that. They'd rather keep us isolated or worse, feared. Daniel shook his head. Great. So we're up against shadowy conspiracies now. Just what we needed. Laura ignored his sarcasm and focused on the task at hand. All right, here's what we'll do. Maria, dig deeper into those transmissions. See if you can find anything that points to specific individuals or organizations. Kyle and Rachel, go over the container's schematics again. Look for any clues about where the failsafe came from or who designed it. Daniel, I need you to review our mission logs. There might be something we missed, a detail, a name, anything. Everyone nodded and got to work, the room filling with the hum of keyboards and quiet conversations. Laura stayed at the table, staring at the hologram as her mind raced. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. The Zixians had given them a chance to prove themselves, but that window wouldn't stay open forever. Hours passed, and the team slowly began piecing together fragments of information. Maria was the first to make progress. She called everyone back to the table, her expression grim. I found something. A series of encrypted messages sent from Earth Command to various contractors involved in preparing these peace offerings. One name keeps coming up. Vanguard Dynamics. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Vanguard Dynamics? Isn't that one of the biggest defense contractors on Earth? It is, Maria confirmed. They specialize in weapon systems and advanced technology. But according to these messages, they were also contracted to design and build the containers used in diplomatic missions, including ours. Rachel leaned forward, her brow furrowed. Why would a weapons manufacturer be involved in something like this? That doesn't make sense. It does if they're the ones planting the fail-safes, Kyle said. Think about it. They have the expertise to hide something like that. And if things go wrong, they profit. From increased military funding, new contracts, all of it. Laura clenched her fists. This goes deeper than I thought. Vanguard Dynamics has ties to Earth's government. If they're behind this, then we're dealing with corruption at the highest levels. But how do we prove it? Daniel asked. Even if we suspect them, we don't have hard evidence. Not yet. Maria tapped her tablet again, pulling up another file. There's more. I found traces of a secondary program embedded in the container systems. It looks like a tracking algorithm, something designed to monitor the container's location and status. So they knew exactly when and where it would fail, Laura said, her voice cold. They planned this. It gets worse, Maria added. The algorithm is linked to a secure server. If we can hack into it, we might be able to trace the source, Kyle. And Rachel exchanged glances. That's risky, Kyle said. If they detect us, they'll know we're onto them. We don't have a choice, Laura replied. We need proof. Maria, can you get us into that server? Maria hesitated, then nodded. I'll try, but it won't be easy. Their security protocols are top-notch. Do it, Laura ordered. In the meantime, we prepare for the worst. If Vanguard Dynamics finds out we're investigating them, they might retaliate. We need to be ready. As Maria got to work, the rest of the team focused on securing the ship and reviewing their options. Laura paced the bridge, her thoughts swirling. She knew they were walking a dangerous line. Exposing a powerful organization like Vanguard Dynamics could have serious consequences, not just for her crew but for humanity as a whole. But staying silent wasn't an option either. If they wanted to rebuild trust with the Zixians and the galaxy at large, they had to take a stand. Hours later, Maria let out a triumphant shout. I'm in. I accessed the server. Laura hurried over, her heart pounding. What did you find? Maria scrolled through lines of code, her eyes scanning the data. It's a log of all the containers they've built, including the ones that failed during previous missions. Each one has a failsafe programmed into it. And look at this. She highlighted a section of text. These orders came directly from Earth Command, signed by someone named Director Hargrove. Daniel swore under his breath. Director Hargrove? He's one of the most powerful men on Earth. If he's involved, we're dead. Not if we play this. Right? Laura said. Her mind was already working on a plan. We need to broadcast this information. Let the galaxy know what's really going on. If we can expose the truth, we might still have a chance. But how do we do that without getting blown out of the sky? Rachel asked. If Vanguard Dynamics or Earth Command catches wind of this, they'll come after us. Laura's jaw tightened. We don't give them the chance. Maria, patch this data into a transmission. Encrypt it so they can't trace it back to us. Then send it to every major news outlet and diplomatic channel in the galaxy. Make sure everyone sees it. And the Zixians? Kyle asked. They'll see it too, Laura replied. Once they know the truth, they'll understand we weren't lying. At least I hope they will. Maria nodded and began setting up the transmission. The rest of the team watched in silence, the weight of what they were about to do sinking in. This wasn't just about clearing their names anymore. It was about taking a stand against corruption and greed, for the sake of humanity and the future of interstellar relations. Finally, Maria looked up. It's ready. Once I hit send, there's no turning back. Laura took a deep breath and nodded. Do it. Maria pressed the button and the data streamed out into the galaxy, carrying the truth about Vanguard Dynamics, Earth Command, and the sabotaged peace missions. For a moment, the room was silent. The only sound, the faint hum of the ship's systems. Then Daniel broke the silence. Well, that's it. Now we wait. Laura stared at the viewport, watching the stars stretch endlessly beyond. She didn't know what would happen next, but one thing was certain. The game had changed. Whether humanity rose to meet the challenge or fell further into mistrust depended on what came next. The transmission was sent, and the crew of the Aurora Dawn waited in tense silence. The data exposing Vanguard Dynamics and Earth Command's role in sabotaging humanity's peace missions was now out in the galaxy, spreading like wildfire across news channels, diplomatic networks, and communication hubs. Laura Myers stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the main screen as reports began flooding in. Reactions were mixed. Some species expressed outrage, others disbelief, and a few seemed indifferent. But one thing was clear. The truth had been revealed, and there was no taking it back. Daniel Carter leaned against the wall, his arms crossed. So, what now? We've burned our bridges with Earth Command, and probably made enemies of some pretty powerful people. Do we just sit here and wait for them to come after us? Laura turned to him, her expression calm but resolute. We don't have a choice. If we run, It'll look like we're guilty of something. Besides, we've done the right thing. Exposing. The truth is the only way to start fixing this mess. But will anyone believe us? Rachel Kim asked, her voice quiet. Even if they see the evidence, they might think we're lying or trying to cover up our own mistakes. Maria Lopez, who had been monitoring incoming communications, spoke up. Actually, some of them do believe us. I've been getting messages from smaller species and independent colonies. They're saying they've suspected something like this for years but never had proof. Now that they know, they want answers and action. Kyle Bennett nodded. That's good, right? If enough species side with us, it could put pressure on Earth Command and Vanguard Dynamics to clean up their act. Maybe, Laura said, though her tone suggested she wasn't entirely convinced. But it's not going to be easy. Vanguard Dynamics has deep pockets and powerful allies. They're not going to let this slide without a fight. As if on cue, an alert flashed on the main screen. Maria quickly brought up the message. It was from Earth Command, marked urgent. The text was brief and to the point. Stand down immediately. Your actions are unauthorized and jeopardize human security. Await further instructions. Daniel snorted. Yeah, because following their orders got us so far. Laura ignored him and addressed the team. They're going to try to spin this, however. They can. Maybe claim we faked the data or acted without proper authority. We need to stay ahead of them. Maria, keep monitoring communications. Kyle and Rachel, check the ship's systems for any signs of tampering or tracking. Daniel, help me draft a response to Earth Command. The team sprang into action, each focusing on their tasks. Laura sat at the communications console, her fingers flying over the keyboard as she composed her reply. She kept it simple and direct, refusing to back down. We stand by our actions. The evidence speaks for itself. Humanity cannot move forward until those responsible for undermining our diplomatic efforts are held accountable. We will not remain silent. Once the message was sent, Laura leaned back in her chair, letting out a long breath. She knew the next few days would be critical. Earth Command wouldn't take this lightly, and neither would Vanguard Dynamics. But she also knew they had no other option. Running away or staying silent would only confirm the worst suspicions about humanity. Hours later, another message arrived. This time from the Zixians. Their leader appeared on screen, its translucent form shimmering with a mix of colors that suggested both caution and curiosity. Your broadcast intrigues us, it said, its melodic voice translated through Maria's device. You claim others within your kind sabotage your efforts, yet you provide proof. Why should we trust this proof? Laura stepped forward, meeting the Zixian's gaze. Because we've put everything on the line to show you the truth. If we wanted to deceive you, we wouldn't have exposed our own failures. We came here to build trust, not destroy it. The Zixian tilted its head, studying her. Your words carry weight, but actions speak louder. What will you do now? We'll continue fighting for transparency, Laura replied. Not just with you, but with every species. We won't let those who profit from fear and division control our future. The Zixian paused, its colors shifting slightly before settling into a softer hue. Very well. We will observe. If your actions match your words, perhaps there is hope for your kind. With that, the transmission ended, leaving the crew in stunned silence. Laura turned to her team, a small smile tugging at her lips. That's more than we had before. They're willing to give us a chance. But for how long? Daniel asked. If Earth Command sends ships to arrest us, or worse, we're not exactly in a position to defend ourselves. We'll deal with that when it comes, Laura said firmly. For now, we focus on what we can control. Maria, did you find anything else in those logs? Maria nodded, her expression serious. There's more. The server I hacked into contained references to other operations. Missions where Vanguard Dynamics supplied technology or weapons under the guise of peaceful initiatives. Some of them involved attacks on neutral species, disguised as accidents or misunderstandings. Rachel frowned. Are you saying they've been using these missions to destabilize regions of space, to create conflicts where none existed before? It looks that way, Maria confirmed. And if that's true, then this goes beyond sabotaging our peace offerings. They've been manipulating entire sectors of the galaxy for their own gain. Laura felt a chill run down her spine. The scope of the conspiracy was staggering. If we can gather enough evidence, we might be able to rally support from other species, show them how they've been used as pawns in someone else's game. But how do we do that without putting ourselves in even more danger? Kyle asked. Every move. We make risks tipping off Vanguard Dynamics or Earth Command. We work carefully, Laura said. Maria, keep digging into those logs. See if you can find records of specific incidents, attacks, betrayals, anything that proves their involvement. Kyle and Rachel, review our own mission archives. Look for patterns or connections we might have missed. Daniel, I need you to reach out to any contacts we have among other crews or colonies. Let them know what's happening. We can't fight this alone. The team nodded and got to work, the atmosphere aboard the Aurora Dawn charged with determination. Hours turned into days as they pieced together fragments of information, building a case against Vanguard Dynamics and Earth Command. Slowly but surely a clearer picture emerged, one that painted a damning portrait of greed and manipulation. Meanwhile, reactions to their broadcast continued to pour in. Some species condemned humanity outright, unwilling to forgive past transgressions. Others expressed cautious optimism, intrigued by the possibility of genuine change. Independent journalists and investigators began picking up the story, uncovering additional evidence that supported the crew's claims. One evening, as Laura stood on the observation deck gazing at the stars, Daniel joined her. You really think this will work? He asked, his tone softer than usual. I don't know, Laura admitted, but it has to. If we don't try, nothing will ever change. Humanity deserves a chance to prove it can be better. Daniel sighed. I hope you're right, because if this blows up in our faces, we're not just risking our lives. We're risking the future of our entire species. Laura nodded, her gaze fixed on the distant horizon. Then we'd better make sure it doesn't. Unbeknownst to them, their actions had already set something in motion, a ripple effect that would soon spread far beyond the confines of the Aurora Dawn. For the first time in years, the galaxy was watching humanity closely, not with suspicion or hostility, but with a glimmer of cautious hope. And for Laura Myers and her crew, that was enough to keep fighting. The days that followed were a blur of activity aboard the Aurora Dawn. Laura Myers and her crew worked tirelessly, gathering evidence, monitoring communications, and reaching out to allies across the galaxy. The response was slow at first, but as more species began to investigate the claims made in the broadcast, momentum started to build. Independent journalists uncovered damning reports linking Vanguard Dynamics to covert operations. Diplomatic channels buzzed with urgent discussions about accountability and reform. For the first time in decades, humanity was not just a subject of fear or mistrust. It was a topic of serious debate. But the pressure was mounting. Earth Command had issued multiple warnings, demanding the Aurora Dawn return to Earth immediately. When those demands went unanswered, they escalated their rhetoric, accusing the crew of treason and threatening military intervention. Laura knew it was only a matter of time before ships were dispatched to intercept them. Still, she refused to back down. One evening, as the crew gathered in the briefing room, Maria Lopez brought up a new development. I've been tracking Earth Command's fleet movements, she said, pulling up a holographic map. They're assembling a task force near the edge of Zix-7's sector. If they send it after us, we won't have much time to prepare. Daniel Carter leaned forward, his expression grim. So what do we do? Fight them off? Run? Or sit here and hope they change their minds? We don't run, Laura said firmly. And we don't fight unless we have no other choice. Our goal is to expose the truth, not start a war. Then what's the plan? Kyle Bennett asked. We can't just wait for them to show up and arrest us. Laura thought for a moment before answering. We use this opportunity to bring everything into the open. If Earth Command sends ships after us, it'll confirm what we've been saying. They're trying to silence us because they know we're right. We need to make sure the galaxy sees that. Maria nodded. I can set up a live feed, broadcast everything that happens directly to major news outlets and diplomatic channels. If they attack us, the whole galaxy will watch. Do you think that'll stop them? Rachel Kim asked skeptically. They might not care if everyone knows. They've already shown they're willing to go to extreme lengths to protect their secrets. It might not stop them, Laura admitted, but it'll make them hesitate. And even if they do come after us, the truth will be out there. That's all we can do. The team got to work preparing for the worst. Maria set up the live feed, ensuring it couldn't be traced back to the ship or shut down remotely. Kyle and Rachel reinforced the Aurora Dawn's defenses, knowing full well they wouldn't stand a chance against a full-scale assault. Daniel helped Laura draft a final message to Earth Command, one last appeal for reason before the situation spiraled further out of control. When the message was ready, Laura recorded it and sent it out. Her voice was steady, her words clear. To Earth Command and Vanguard Dynamics, you've had your chance to address the corruption within your ranks. Instead, you've chosen to silence those who speak the truth. The galaxy is watching now. Whatever you do next will define how history remembers you, not just as leaders of humanity, but as representatives of a species trying to find its place among the stars. The hours that followed were tense. The crew remained on high alert, waiting for any sign of Earth Command's forces. Finally, late one night, the sensors picked up incoming ships. Maria quickly activated the live feed, broadcasting the Aurora Dawn's position and the approaching fleet to the entire galaxy. The screen flickered to life, showing dozens of vessels moving steadily closer. They're here, Daniel said quietly, his hand resting on the hilt of his sidearm. Laura stood at the center of the bridge, her eyes fixed on the viewport. Stay calm. Remember why we're doing this. As the Earth Command ships entered visual range, a transmission came through. A stern-faced officer appeared on screen, his uniform adorned with medals and insignias. Captain Myers, you are ordered to surrender your vessel immediately. Resist and you will be detained by force. Laura stepped forward, addressing him directly. The galaxy is watching. Whatever you do next will prove whether humanity truly values peace, or if it's willing to destroy its own people to protect lies. The officer's jaw tightened, but he didn't respond. Instead, the transmission cut off, leaving the crew in silence. Moments later, the Earth Command ship slowed to a halt, maintaining a safe distance from the Aurora Dawn. No weapons were fired, no boarding parties deployed. It was as if they were unsure how to proceed. Maria broke the silence. They're hesitating. Maybe the broadcast worked. Or maybe they're waiting for reinforcements, Daniel muttered. Laura shook her head. No, they're thinking. Wondering if it's worth the risk. Let's give them something else to think about. She turned to Maria. Send another message. To every species, every colony, every news outlet. Tell them exactly what's happening. Right now. Let them decide what comes next. Maria complied, her fingers flying over the controls. As the message spread, reactions poured in. Some species condemned Earth Command's actions, calling for restraint. Others offered support to the Aurora Dawn, pledging to intervene if necessary. The tide of public opinion was shifting, and Earth Command seemed increasingly isolated. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, another transmission came through. This time, it wasn't from the officer commanding the fleet, but from a higher-ranking official, a member of Earth's governing council. His face appeared on screen, his expression unreadable. Captain Myers, he began, his voice measured. You've caused significant disruption, but perhaps there is merit to your claims. An inquiry will be launched into the allegations against Vanguard Dynamics and certain elements within Earth Command. Until then, stand down and await further instructions. Laura exchanged glances with her crew before responding. An inquiry isn't enough. Transparency must be absolute. Humanity cannot move forward until those responsible are held accountable. The official hesitated, then nodded. Agreed. Steps will be taken to ensure justice is served. Return to Earth when you are ready. Your cooperation will be vital in rebuilding. Trust. The transmission ended, leaving the crew in stunned silence. Laura let out a long breath, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. "Well," she said finally, "that wasn't exactly the outcome I expected." Daniel chuckled dryly. "Yeah, because usually corrupt governments suddenly decide to play fair. Don't jinx it," Rachel said with a small smile. Over the following weeks, the galaxy watched closely as Earth Command and Vanguard dynamics faced unprecedented scrutiny. Investigations uncovered layers of corruption, leading to arrests and resignations at the highest levels. Humanity's reputation, though still fragile, began to improve as efforts were made to rebuild trust with other species. The Zixians, true to their word, observed these changes with cautious interest. Their leader eventually contacted Laura, offering to host formal negotiations between humanity and several key species. It was a tentative step, but one filled with promise. As the Aurora Dawn prepared to leave Zix 7, Laura stood on the observation deck, gazing at the glowing planet below. Daniel joined her, leaning against the railing. "Do you think we did enough?" he asked. Laura smiled faintly. "For now, yes. But this is just the beginning. There's still so much work to do." Daniel nodded. "Yeah, but at least we're finally heading in the right direction." Laura turned to him, her expression resolute. "And we'll keep going, no matter what it takes." With that, the Aurora Dawn lifted off, its engines humming softly as it disappeared into the vastness of space. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but for the first time in years, there was hope, not just for humanity, but for the galaxy as a whole.